snow, steel, and silence. Then came the thunder of 10,000 hooves. In the winter of 1240, the Mongol war machine rode north, expecting fear but found something unexpected. 100 men stood in their path. No cavalry, no reserves, no retreat. Just exhausted northern warriors who had decided where they would de-end, intended to make death expensive. These weren't ordinary enemies. The Mongols had erased kingdoms from China to Eastern Europe. Armies larger than this valley had vanished beneath their arrows. So why did this moment disappear from Mongol records? Why did the greatest military force in history choose silence? Because what happened here shattered something far more dangerous than uncertainty. By 1240, the Mongol Empire was not conquering, it was consuming. Cities that had stood for centuries collapsed in days. Armies dissolved before battle was even joined. Resistance did not fail. It vanished. The Mongols perfected speed, terror, and distance, killing enemies who never got close enough to strike back. Their victories were so complete that history itself seemed to retreat before them. The Mongols understood something no army before them had mastered: fear multiplies force. Stories traveled faster than horses, pyramids of skulls. Cities emptied overnight. Most enemies surrendered before arrows ever flew. And those who didn't were erased so completely that their memory served as warning to the next. Yet in the northern forests, something ancient still lingered. Descendants of the old Norse worldmen raised on sagas where dying in battle was not tragedy, but fulfillment. They were anachronisms, warriors from a dying age facing the most advanced army on earth. Military logic said they should vanish like smoke. The Mongols had already crushed the southern Ruslands. Winter did not slow them, it sharpened them. Retreat was impossible. Hiding was temporary. The 100 knew the truth, every refugee knew this was where the road ended. They selected a valley barely 200 yards wide. Forests choked cavalry movement. Ice betrayed horses. Frozen rivers sealed their rear. Geography became a weapon. This was not bravery. This was calculation born of desperation. At dawn, the 100 formed a single line, overlapping shields, axes ready behind them. 50 yards of wood and iron. No shouting, no movement, just breath fogging the air. To the Mongols, it looked like suicide. To the men in the line, it was clarity. The first volley darkened the sky. Thousands of arrows fell with the sound of winter rain. This storm had broken armies from Korea to Poland. Men always ran when death fell from above. But here something went wrong. Shields rose in perfect unison. Arrows slammed, rattled, and stuck fast. Mail turned, glancing blows. Men grunted as flesh was pierced, but no one moved. Not one step backward. The valley absorbed the storm and remained standing. This was new. Mongol veterans shifted uneasily. Every enemy they had ever faced screamed, prayed, or fled. These men did none of it. They stood like carved stone. Silence swallowed, the valley uncertainty began to crack. By mid-morning, the Mongols understood something was wrong. Their greatest strength, speed, terror, mobility were being strangled by ice, trees, and men who would not chase. In this nameless valley, mathematics had met something it could not easily defeat. After the arrows failed, the Mongols did what they always did next. They probed. Light cavalry surged forward, loosing shafts at full gallop, then wheeling away, daring the shield wall to follow. Every instinct in warfare screamed to chase, to punish retreat. The 100 did nothing, not a step, not a shout. Up! The trap required patience, and patience was the one thing the Mongols had never needed before. As the sun climbed, the ice betrayed the attackers. Meltwater glazed the valley floor into a mirror of death. Horses slipped. Riders fell. Momentum vanished. The Mongols were masters of movement, but movement required trust in the ground beneath them. Here, every stride carried risk. The 100 had chosen this place not for glory, but for physics. Pride replaced caution. Mongol officers gathered their elite heavier riders, better armor, lances lowered. This was the hammer meant to shatter resistance by sheer force. Thousands watched as 500 of the horde's finest formed ranks. Against 100 men, it should have been annihilation. The charge began slowly, then gathered speed until the valley narrowed. Horses were forced closer together. Fallen bodies blocked clean lines. Ice stole traction. By the time the riders reached full gallop, they were compressed into a single mass racing uphill into a wooden wall. At 25 yards, the 100 finally broke their silence. A roar tore from their throats, ancient and feral. Horses reared, formations wavered. In that instant, discipline cracked. The Mongols had fought armies, but they had never faced men who waited until the moment terror would work for them. Lances slammed into shields with the sound of splitting trees. Oak and iron held where flesh should have failed. Horses, unable to stop on ice, crashed forward and sideways, exposing riders. The wall did not bend. It absorbed and answered. 100 axes moved as one. Heavy blades fell into horse necks, legs, riders trapped in saddles. The killing was methodical, not wild. Each swing chosen, each strike final. Cavalry died where cavalry was never meant to die standing still. Dead horses piled against the shield wall, creating a grotesque rampart. Riders behind crashed into their own fallen. The Mongols had built an obstacle out of their strength. What should have been, momentum became paralysis. 1,000 lighter cavalry charged next, firing arrows at close range. 3 defenders fell. The line closed instantly, shields sliding to fill the gaps. Instead of retreating, the 100 stepped forward one synchronized pace. That step shattered something inside the Mongol ranks. Forced to slow among corpses and ice, the Mongols entered a space where axes could reach, but sabers could not. Geometry replaced heroics. Every rider who advanced did so alone. Every mistake was punished instantly. Fire arrows followed, shields burned. 2 men became living torches. They were pulled back and ended mercifully. New warriors stepped forward without hesitation. The wall endured, now wreathed in flame and smoke. Fear had run out of options. Quivers emptied. Thousands of shafts lay useless in snow and mud. The arrow storm, the Mongols' greatest weapon, began to thin. For the first time in memory, the horde felt scarcity. The shield wall advanced again, slow, inevitable, men bleeding, wounded, dying, still moving. What remained of the 100 had become something else, less human than resolve made flesh. Whispers rippled through Mongol ranks. These were not men. These were spirits, demons of frost. Warriors who could not be broken. Doubts spread faster than arrows ever had. By midday, the Mongols faced an unthinkable truth. They were not winning. They were bleeding. In a valley chosen by desperate men, the invincible had stalled, and hesitation is death to an empire built on momentum. Hours of killing stripped the battle down to instinct. Blood steamed on snow. Arms shook from exhaustion. Then one of the 100 broke from the line, not in fear, but in fury. Shield cast aside, axe gripped in both hands, he charged into the mass alone. It was madness. It was legend being born. Mongols watched a man run into death without hesitation, and the sight unsettled them more than any tactic. The berserker fell, riddled with arrows. But he left something behind. Fear. Not fear of dying, the Mongols knew death, but fear of an enemy who did not care if he lived. Whispers moved through the ranks like frostbite. Some spoke of northern demons. Others of warriors already claimed by death who refused to lie down. Then the leader of the 100 moved. White-bearded, wounded, arrows in his flesh, he stepped beyond the shields and tore the shafts from his body as if they were thorns. He did not shout. He simply raised his axe and waited. It was a challenge older than empires. Shame replaced caution. Orders rang out. The Mongols gathered their remaining strength, 2,000 riders, the best still mounted. This was no longer about victory. It was about restoring belief. If they failed here, the myth of Mongol invincibility would die in the snow. The charge came like a hammer. Horses screamed. Men shouted. The valley shook beneath the weight of an empire's pride. The shield wall bent. For the first time, gaps appeared. Mongol sabers found flesh. Northern blood spilled freely. Formation dissolved. This was no longer strategy. It was killing at arm's length. Axes, knives, fists, teeth. Men slipped in blood-soaked slush. Horses thrashed and crushed the wounded beneath them. In that chaos, the fate of the North balanced on minutes. Out of the chaos, 2 figures closed. One young, fast, and unwounded. the other old, bleeding, and unafraid. East met north. Speed met acceptance. The clash that followed would live in whispers, not records. When the Mongol commander fell, something unseen collapsed with him. Discipline cracked. Courage drained away. Men who had never retreated took a step back, then another. Momentum reversed. What started as withdrawal became flight. 10,000 riders turned from a battlefield they could not understand, not beaten by numbers, not outmatched by steel, broken by men who refused to behave like victims. Silence returned to the valley. Of the 100, fewer than 70 still stood. Bodies of men and horses reshaped the land itself. Victory felt like survival with a receipt written in blood. Wounds were tended with snow and steel. Arrows pushed through instead of pulled out. Those too badly hurt were given mercy by their brothers. There would be no songs yet. It's only work. The old commander lived just long enough to see the Mongol banners vanish into the forest. Then the weight of wounds finally claimed him. He died standing, hands still locked around his axe, eyes fixed on the north. Survivors carried the tale across frozen roads. In taverns and refugee camps, the impossible story spread. 100 men had stopped the horde. Fear changed direction. In Mongol camps, no victory was announced. No tale carved into memory. Some defeats are too dangerous to remember. Better to let them vanish. Empires are built on inevitability. In that frozen valley, inevitability broke. And once broken, it can never be fully repaired. When the fighting ended, victory felt heavy. Of the 100 who had stood at dawn, only a few dozen still breathed. Most could barely stand. The valley had been reshaped by bodies, horses piled like fallen walls, men frozen where they died. This was not triumph as sung in halls. It was survival purchased at a price no one would forget. The Mongol force did not return. Leaderless and shaken, they abandoned their planned winter advance. What should have been a swift campaign dissolved into cautious movement and delay. For the first time, forests were no longer shortcuts. Word spread faster than fire. In villages and ruined towns, people whispered the impossible. 10,000 had turned away. The horde could bleed. The horde could hesitate. Fear, once a Mongol weapon, had changed hands. No songs marked the battle in Mongol chronicles. No victory stones, no mention at all. Empires document triumphs, not moments that fracture belief. Silence became the safest place to bury the truth. The lesson was simple and terrifying. Space denied mobility. Ice punished speed. Terrain multiplied courage. What had been unstoppable in open lands became fragile in narrow places defended by men who would not run. From that winter onward, Mongol commanders treated forests with caution. Valleys became questions. Resistance became expensive. One stand did not end the empire, but it taught it doubt. Empires fear memory more than armies, because armies can be rebuilt, but once inevitability is broken, it never fully returns. Legends spread where orders cannot reach. Courage is not charging forward. Courage is standing still when every instinct screams to flee. Courage is choosing the place you will end, making that choice matter. In that frozen valley, mathematics met men who refused to play by its rules. The empire survived, but it learned fear. Fear, once learned, never fully fades.